Evolution's Brat. Randy Orton's first real heel run took shape in 2003 when Triple H slotted him into Evolution as the group's young prospect. On paper, he was nothing special yet. Short haircut, plain gear, second-generation pedigree. But one injury changed everything. After breaking his collarbone, Orton returned to TV with his arm in a sling and debuted the RNN updates. Each week, he cut self-important promos about the progress of his shoulder. The sling became a prop, the updates a running gag, and crowds started booing this rookie who acted like his recovery was headline news. Evolution gave him the platform. With Ric Flair strutting, Batista looming, and Triple H leading, Orton played the bratty kid brother who didn't earn the spotlight but demanded it anyway. He smirked through promos, lifted his chin higher than his resume allowed, and leaned heavily on being Bob Orton's son. He had the protection of a stable, but the arrogance was all his own. By the end of 2003, fans weren't just booing Evolution as a group, they were booing Randy specifically because his smug updates had worn them down. Looking back, that sling was more than an injury detail. It was the first clue of a performer who understood how to needle the audience with something simple. The cocky poses, the rehearsed smirk, the obsession with himself. All of it was groundwork for the version that would make him infamous the Legend Killer.
What boy? What boy? What boy? It's so cool. I usually sell like 10 boxes, but I sold 60. Ow!
The Legend Killer, 2004 to 2005. When the sling finally came off, Randy Orton didn't just return as the Brat from Evolution. He came back with a purpose, humiliating legends. By 2004, WWE positioned him as the Legend Killer, and the smug rookie turned into a cold-blooded heel who made his name off the backs of veterans. His first high-profile target was Mick Foley. Orton spat in Foley's face, then survived the brutal hardcore match at Backlash 2004, where he used thumbtacks and barbed wire to prove that the pampered kid could be as vicious as anyone. Fans couldn't ignore it anymore. The Brat with the sling was now the cocky executioner of icons. From Harley Race to Sergeant Slaughter to Dusty Rhodes, Orton cut down names that audiences respected. He interrupted tributes, disrespected entrances, and dropped RKO after RKO with that signature smirk. Even The Undertaker was dragged into the act, with Orton claiming he would end the dead man's streak at WrestleMania 21. Each time, the pattern was the same: Orton's youth and arrogance clashing against history, and crowds booing as their heroes were left laid out. And here's the part nobody says out loud. The Legend Killer wasn't just about cheap heat. It was a company-wide endorsement. Orton was given license to disrespect the past because management wanted him to become the future. That's why the act worked. It was arrogance wrapped in corporate approval. If you're still watching, you're already doing what Orton wanted, giving him the spotlight. And since you're here, go ahead and subscribe before he punts another legend off your screen. The Viper Unleashed. By 2007, Randy Orton dropped the last reminders of his early days. The sling that once gave him cheap heat was gone, and the Legend Killer arrogance had hardened into something colder. He didn't need props, and he didn't need to brag about recovery percentages. Now he was the Viper. A man who ended careers with no warning. His feud with John Cena set the tone. In September 2007, Orton kicked Cena's father in the head at ringside, an attack so direct and vicious that it instantly marked him as WWE's top villain. The punt became his signature. Every time he lined up his opponent, the crowd knew someone was about to be carried out. Orton's presentation shifted too. He wore plain black trunks, shaved his head, and carried himself with a slower, deliberate pace. His promos became quiet and short, relying on long stares instead of loud insults. The matches followed the same rhythm: methodical control, sudden bursts of violence, and then the RKO or the head kick. It was a formula that drew loud boos, especially from kids who saw their heroes left motionless. He punted Shawn Michaels, took out Rob Van Dam, and dropped legends one after another. He also turned on Triple H's allies during their feud, making it clear that even his old mentor wasn't safe. By 2008, Randy had erased any trace of the cocky rookie. The Brat with the sling had grown into the Legend Killer, who no longer needed stunts, only violence. And now he was something even worse: the Viper, a top heel built on real fear.
Oh my God! An adjustment! Randy!
The Legacy Puppet Master. In 2009, Randy Orton shifted into full control mode by leading Cody Rhodes and Ted DiBiase Jr. as Legacy. This was no longer the rookie hiding behind a sling or the lone Viper stalking one target. Now he was the manipulator, using two young partners as cover while he tore into the McMahon family. The year opened with a shocking moment. Orton punted Vince McMahon on Raw. Weeks later, he went after Shane, and then came the angle that defined the run. On one infamous night, Triple H was handcuffed to the ropes while Orton dropped Stephanie with an RKO, then kissed her unconscious body in front of him. It was one of the most uncomfortable heel moments of that decade, and the boos were as real as they get. Orton carried himself differently in this run. He slowed his promos to a near whisper, dragging out every word while Rhodes and DiBiase stood silently behind him. The punt and sudden RKO were still his weapons, but the Shield of Legacy made him untouchable for months. Fans hated it because every attack on the McMahons felt like a direct violation of WWE's core family, and because Orton was clearly being positioned as the company's lead villain. And let's be honest, nobody ever believed Cody or Ted were running things. The build led to WrestleMania 25, where Orton challenged Triple H for the WWE Championship. The match fell flat compared to the months of violence that preceded it, but the feud itself secured his spot. By the end of 2009, Randy wasn't just ending careers, he was proving he could run an entire faction, twisting allies into pawns and making his rivals' lives miserable from every angle. The Apex Predator. By 2010, Randy Orton had stripped everything down. The cocky rookie, the legend killer, and the manipulative leader of Legacy were gone. What remained was a bare version of Orton. Shaved head, plain black trunks, and a slower, deliberate style that WWE branded as the Apex Predator. This era marked his transition into a heel who didn't need backup or props. He relied on his timing, his stare, and the sudden violence of the RKO and punt. The character was presented with minimal flash. Orton entered without emotion, moved carefully in the ring, and kept his promos short. He paused often, delivering lines in a flat tone that made audiences uneasy.
Today I will tell you about my professional dream of becoming a race car pilot.
Are you serious right now, bro?
By telling... Pô.
The focus of his matches was control. He slowed opponents down, cut off momentum, and ended bouts with sudden impact. Crowds booed because of the cruelty, but the precision made some begin to respect the performer, which blurred the line between heel heat and reluctant admiration. You could almost hear fans boo and clap in the same breath. Feuds reinforced this image. He went after Sheamus in multiple title matches, targeted younger stars like Evan Bourne, and crossed paths again with John Cena. His RKO on Bourne's shooting star press in mid-2010 became one of the most replayed clips of the era, proof of his calculated patience. By early 2011, WWE began shifting him toward a face role, especially against The Miz and later Christian. But in 2010 through the first part of 2011, Orton's Apex Predator run stood as a true heel chapter. It was the version where he didn't brag or posture.
It was at this moment that Jackson knew Randy Orton was here.
Out of nowhere!
The Authorities Chosen. By 2013, Randy Orton circled back to the main event in a way that showed how much the company trusted him as a heel. At SummerSlam, Daniel Bryan defeated John Cena clean for the WWE Championship, only for Orton to cash in his Money in the Bank briefcase after Triple H turned on Bryan. Overnight, he became the face of WWE, handpicked by the Authority. This wasn't the violent rogue of 2009 or the Apex Predator of 2010. This was a corporate champion, protected by Triple H and Stephanie, and booked to rob babyfaces of their victories with constant interference. Orton's promos shifted again. He spoke with arrogance but leaned heavily on the idea that management wanted him as champion. The RKO was still his finisher, but the heat wasn't about brutality anymore. It was about being the smug poster boy of a rigged system. The feud with Daniel Bryan lasted months, with every show building around fans wanting Bryan to beat him. Orton carried the title with a calculated smirk, often stalling in matches and rolling out of the ring to waste time. At TLC 2013, he unified the WWE and World Heavyweight Championships, cementing himself as the Authority's chosen champion. The act drew relentless boos because it felt like Orton had been gifted his spot instead of earning it. And in fairness, that was the point. Fans were supposed to hate the idea that the company itself backed him. If you watched live, you remember the chants. And if you didn't, trust me, you've never heard an arena that angry over a suit and tie endorsement. Wyatt family betrayer. In 2017, Randy Orton pulled off one of the most unsettling heel turns of his career by pretending to join the Wyatt family. For months, he stood side by side with Bray Wyatt, adopting the group's eerie mannerisms and even kneeling during their promos. Fans were unsure whether Orton had actually submitted to Bray's control or was setting a trap. The truth came out in March when Orton turned on Wyatt in a way only he could. He revealed that he had infiltrated the faction from the start, then burned down the Wyatt compound in a segment that showed the grave of Sister Abigail going up in flames. The betrayal shocked viewers because the deception had been played so patiently. Orton's behavior during this run was calculated. He let Bray talk most of the time, kept his movements slow, and stood quietly in the background. When the reveal happened, it felt bigger than a simple heel attack. It was months of trust shattered in one night. The feud led to their WrestleMania 33 match, where Orton defeated Bray for the WWE Championship. The match itself was infamous for its projected ring graphics of worms and insects, which distracted more than it impressed. But nobody forgot the betrayal angle that got them there. And here's the kicker. People actually argued whether Orton was the heel for betraying Bray, or the face for taking down a cult.
That's not good!
Sadistic Veteran. By 2019, Randy Orton was no longer the cocky rookie, the corporate champion, or even the infiltrator. He was a veteran who carried nearly 2 decades of credibility, and he used that status to unleash one of his most sadistic heel runs. The feud with Edge defined it. When Edge returned at the 2020 Royal Rumble after 9 years of retirement, the story wrote itself. Orton embraced him the next night on Raw, only to drop him with a sudden RKO. What followed was a series of brutal assaults that blurred the line between storyline and reality. The con chair 2 on Edge's surgically repaired neck left fans stunned in silence. Orton's promos in this period were some of the best of his career. He spoke slowly, explained his attacks as for Edge's own good, and justified his actions as acts of mercy. It was the classic heel defense, doing harm while claiming virtue. The tone was flat, almost clinical, which made the attacks hit harder. He also targeted other legends, taking out Matt Hardy in back-to-back weeks with con chair 2s that felt uncomfortably real. The presentation was simple but merciless. No flashy colors, no backup, no stables. Just Orton dismantling old rivals one by one. By mid-2020, he was back in the WWE Championship picture against Drew McIntyre, proving that he could still anchor the company as its most reliable villain. And here's the truth. For all the boos, fans knew they were watching a master at work. The same veteran who once begged for attention with the sling in 2003 was now carrying whole shows by ending careers on his own terms. Sometimes you don't need a faction, a gimmick, or a prop, just a chair, a neck, and bad intentions. And yes, Edge fans still haven't forgiven him. 17 years later, the sling was gone, but the smirk never left. That's Randy Orton.
King, look at this! Oh my!